It sounds like there was a shift when you were doing a lot of physical therapy, right? And then there was a shift where you realized that you had a damaged vagus nerve. And is that when Feldenkrais got involved, or?
I was a soldier, and then I had a vagus nerve damage, and then I went to physical therapy school. And in physical therapy school, I find Feldenkrais, but nobody say the word Feldenkrais there. They call it wisdom of the body. And I studied with them for 5 years, and it was very difficult to do because my body react every time we do some movement, but it responded to the changes I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
And I somehow again I knew that this is good for me, and I kept doing it. And then I moved to America in 1983 with a physical therapy degree, and I ended up in a hospital working in a hospital in San Francisco. It was a spine center, was like a really important hospital at the time in 1983 in 1986 in the spine center. I was a physical therapist there. We specialize in back problem. 2 weeks into my job, I got my own back problem. And I couldn't move, and I couldn't walk, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't sit for any time. So I was working in this hospital, and every time I have a no-show, I would lie down on the floor or on the bed and relax and kind of make my day. A year and a half into that, I find a Feldenkrais class teaching in San Francisco that was surprising, and I was very different than the way I work in the hospital. So the way we work in the hospital was more like Pilates and very constrained and very strong and very core exercise. And Feldenkrais is more like fluidity and movement and possibility and ease into the motion. So I went to Feldenkrais, and that day I signed on the bottom line on the contract to study for 4 years the program and get my certificate, because I felt so much better after being treated at that day as a demo, and I knew what it's all about, and it was a relief. So the Feldenkrais method is very much impacting the vagus nerve. And since I was back in Israel and now in this class, the vagus nerve, one of the first things it's safety. This is what it is all about. When you don't feel safe, the vagus nerve is on board. From the day you were born to the day you die, it will protect you. And anytime safety is not available for you, you fight will take over, or you freeze if it's very overwhelming, immobilizing. So my body had a lot of immobilizing because there was a pain, and that's not safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was very much on tension the whole time. So when we had the Feldenkrais class, is very much you lie on your back and you let yourself feel yourself. You self-reflect. The moment you do self-reflection, you feel safe. The temperature in the room is right. You are comfortable. You try to look for the most comfortable place to be. So this is calm down the nervous system. And from ease, you try to do a movement. And that movement is based on some of your blueprint of your reflexes that you had when you were a child. And some of the movement are like animal movement. And the combination of movement are novice to your brain because it's not a movement you do every day. And the position is not a daily. So you have to find a pathway that you don't have. And all of that is such a healing ground to freedom of your body. And so the vagus nerve is, in Feldenkrais, we didn't have the language at the time because the vagus nerve was not so known at the time, but Feldenkrais was wise beyond his time. He didn't know about brain plasticity that we all know about today. He did not have the term, but he knew that the brain is plastic and it can change consistently if you give it the right food. And the right food is learning. It's learning about the self. Keep learning and upgrade the self. So any repetition that we do in Feldenkrais, it's in this variation rather than a repetition. So if you lift something back and forth, you repetition, but there is no variation in it. But if you lift it on one leg, or if you lift it a little to the side, if you lift it from a different place in your body, I do all this movement that you can see me, but people cannot see. But the body is engaged in a different angle, and that's what heal the brain and expand it and make more connection, calm the system, and make the system more valuable to its function, to the highest function it has.